people who search for sex will find this. Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. It is October 9th, 2025. I'm very excited about it being the 9th, apparently. This is episode 947. I am James Jones. I'm joined today by John Lindemann.
Great to be here, James.
Guillaume Fayette.
Hello.
Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
And I didn't say "and" there, so maybe made you think there was a fifth person. There's not. So, hi, that's us today. We're going to start the episode this week with listener mail because you all actually sent some. Now, I do need to put a caveat out here. I badgered y'all for email for a few weeks and even was on the Radio Free Nintendo Blue Sky account, which I don't claim is sentient, unlike the Radio Free Nintendo Twitter account. And there was a piece of news that happened that Nintendo caused, and you all just refused to email us about it because you're trolling me. I'm aware of this. To the point where at some point I was like, I cannot believe the emails y'all have been sending today that aren't this topic. You're doing this on purpose. One of you actually followed through and sent the shocking that we have to ask for this email. Rob Ford also wanted to know if he missed the window to tell John to go fuck himself. And I would say it's not a window so much.
It's
It's
lifestyle.
evergreen. It's evergreen. But, yeah, we got one email we're going to read. The only person who emailed us about this bullshit. Ryan writes, "Hello, friends," and Lindemann. See, the window's always open. With
Always.
the viral... Yes, John?
No, I'm saying it's always open, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah, it's open season on Jonny-L.
That sounds like a gambler's name. Not even a good gambler. With the viral clip of "Close to You," the Nintendo animation of Pikmin without Pikmin, what other Nintendo games would provide surreal experiences if you removed them from their setting, a la Garfield without Garfield? I'm imagining a clip of Mario side-scroller where the Goombas randomly flatten and Koopas get turned into shells, or a Zelda game where the grass starts getting cut out of nowhere, Koopas start getting hurt, and then turn into a tornado of doom out of nowhere. Please turn your creatively fertile creativity to this thought experiment. Cheers. So what Ryan is referencing, because no one bothered to email us about this explicitly,
I want to
Go
acknowledge that Biconite sent us an email about it without mentioning the Pikmin. Well, no, he did mention the Pikmin.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
So did we finally get... I must have missed that one. My mistake.
It's right before he emailed before, yeah.
Okay. So two people did. That's great. Was it Monday?
Yes.
I think it was, yeah. Nintendo posted a video to their Nintendo Today app and then eventually to YouTube of a woman and her baby
Entitled
in a playroom.
"Close to You," and that was all they gave you. It just
Yes.
popped up from the app and just said "Close to You." Like,
Yes.
what the heck is this?
She leaves the room to go answer the door, and the child begins to play with the toys in the room, and they start moving on their own. And it's like a 3-minute video of things moving around the room while the baby's laughing and interacting with them, pacifier getting yanked around the room, and eventually it ends with the pacifier flying up towards the carousel above the baby's crib and getting stuck up there. Mom comes back and is stunned to find the baby's first steps happening.
I said yes too quickly. It was Tuesday that this popped up.
Tuesday, okay.
Yes.
Wednesday, Nintendo releases the same goddamn video, but with all the Pikmin re-added to the video. So all those things moving on their own were actually because Pikmin were moving them. And Guillaume, as the keeper of Pikmin lore, do you know why we couldn't see the Pikmin?
Only because I read someone posting the answer online, which is that basically the Pikmin are invisible unless through your phone, which is lore that comes to justify the existence of Pikmin Bloom.
That's right. It's purely for the benefit of Pikmin Bloom existing.
Yeah. I'm not crazy about that, by the way. It's not a piece of lore that I care for. I wish that they hadn't gone that route. But
have you ever seen Pikmin with your naked eyes?
I haven't.
But you've seen them on your phone in Pikmin Bloom.
Yeah. You got me there. Great.
It's true. Just like Pokemon can't be seen with naked eyes, obviously.
Uh-huh.
So because Nintendo gave us nothing on the first video, people eventually sussed out that the music that was playing is a piano rendition of one of the songs that the Pikmin hum.
It's more than just one of the songs. Like there is like the tune that the Pikmin hum, but there's also like the do. Like you can hear it pretty clearly pretty early. So like people were, like this kind of looks like this baby is very Rosalina coded, with the toupee and the I don't know, like the colors.
She had blonde hair. That was it.
Yeah. But like clearly the music was straight. But like maybe that was provisional music from Pikmin that didn't mean anything. Like there was a way that this could have been something else than Pikmin, but the clue was there.
Yeah, I mean it could have been nothing. It could have just been Nintendo's in-house movie production studio decided to produce a short, which ultimately is what it is. So Nintendo Pictures, which is a Japanese a Japanese development or film production studio, they don't make feature films. Like the longest thing they've made are like individual TV episodes.
Well, they did work for Death Stranding too.
They did. They do a lot of motion capture work.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they did for Death Stranding. They do a lot of like also assisted by in the credits when you look at like the credits for cutscenes. They create Nintendo Pictures Co-Limited. As Nintendo says, these are the first film shorts. These are the first short films created by Nintendo Picture Co-Limited. Nintendo Picture will continue to explore new creative possibilities through video content. That is likely a statement about, hey, here's what we're capable of doing. Here's what this team can do. This team isn't big enough to make a movie, so like, don't even think, oh, this is them getting ready to take over making one of the Nintendo movies. This is like 130 people. If you're going to make a CG film, it's like 500. It's a massive undertaking, and this ain't that. But hey, Nintendo has a history of making shorts in the past. In fact, I think these guys worked on some of those shorts. So I could absolutely see this being the kind of thing they put out. It gives Nintendo today sometimes random content. But yeah, I don't think it's anything more than just a video. I think it was just there for fun, and then we got Pikmin in it to sort of like close the loop. Nintendo's done this in the past with some of their marketing stuff, and the Pokemon Company did it too, where it's like, here's a version of the video, here's the version of the video that actually explains what's going on. I really wish they had just left this one alone. Just been like, we're never going to tell you what it is. We're never going to acknowledge it again.
And in fact, we're never going to air this again, and we're just going to all collectively forget it. I don't know why, but I just fucking hated this video. I guess I do have an inkling as to why, but like God, what a load of nothing.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah, like it was a short, like I've seen animated shorts that have something to say, and the first version of it certainly didn't say anything. It was just like, okay, pacifier just moving by itself and doing kind of a Rube Goldberg thing, but not very well, like with gaps in it, and it didn't really work. And it's like, what is the point of this? and then it turns out, okay, this was like some sort of like Pikmin commercial or whatever. Okay, this makes more sense. Or the idea that like this was made for investors, like to show for Nintendo to show to investors, like, look, we got the chops, we can make the same pablum that Illumination makes. We don't need them. I guess that, like that explains a lot. Like if I were an investor watching that, I'd be nodding approvingly. But as someone who likes Pikmin or do like some, short form animation, like this was just not even empty calories. Like I don't know what that was. Like there was no point. It was just like, and there was no like Nintendo style.
Well, I mean, like I said, that if this was a play to make investors think Nintendo can take over making their own films, then those investors are even dumber than we thought investors were, and I already have a very low opinion of them.
Sure.
Because it's like the production of film, like it's the film industry. It is industrial. Like industry is absolutely the right word, and the size of that team is not sufficient for task.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just like, oh, we have people who have made shorts and they've contributed to cutscenes and they've done all kinds of production things. It's like there's a whole sort of management layer of producing a major Hollywood scale film that is beyond just the production studio that they just don't have the chops for. It's not to say Nintendo couldn't develop them, and maybe working on these Mario films is helping them get that experience, but they ain't got it right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, does that mean investors might believe it from these shorts? Yeah, absolutely. Investors are stupid as shit. But I think I view it more as that studio was probably working on learning some technology. Maybe they were being asked to work on some Pikmin stuff, and so they did this little like thought experiment on how would you animate a Pikmin? How would, like, outside the context of a game and the Pikmin shorts, how do we think a Pikmin should move? Like, how should their body... Like, there's a lot of effort, if you watch the video, in showing how their body kind of flails around a little bit, how it warbles from momentum as they walk around. How would they interact with things in the environment, that kind of stuff. I could absolutely see this have just been a project they did to learn some stuff, to try out some ideas, and they just liked it, so then they polished it up and released it. I don't think there's necessarily anything more meaningful about this. This is the equivalent of the fact that you can get the R-Wing to show up in Ocarina of Time. Like, they were running some tests and they used assets they had, and then they used them in a new and novel way and called it a day. They may have had some aspiration of releasing whatever the project they're working on is, but it feels more like the kind of project a team does when they're just trying to learn and improve, and maybe they've hired some people who are less experienced, and it's like, this is a project we're going to work with you on, or somebody's getting their first shot at a director's chair or whatever. But I don't know. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was fine. I was kind of surprised by your like anti-whimsy answer when you're like, I hate this. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know. I just find I don't think that the concept works. Like, I understand that none of it makes sense if you don't understand that the Pikmin are invisible. So maybe that was the rationale for showing the video without the Pikmin first. But the video without the Pikmin didn't make sense either. It's not like these toys have a personality. They're moving on their own. You can see that they don't. So you're just like, okay, what the fuck? I don't know.
I almost like the joke about the fucking Pikmin bloom cannon, whatever. I actually just assumed they were doing it because it would generate more responses if it didn't have Pikmin in it. The idea of, what is it?
Right.
I think this was just them manipulating social media. I don't think there was anything else to it. I think it was just them being like, what can we do to make people pay attention to this thing?
Oh,
I don't know. It made them angry. I think it made them go like, what? Why is it? what's doing. I mean, it got the exact. If that was the goal, they got exactly what they wanted.
Yeah.
They got to see people break down the music, dig through for Pikmin references, go online and post about how confident they were that it was Pikmin. Like I just assumed this was a ploy for some attention, and by releasing them without the Pikmin first and then releasing them with the Pikmin the next day, they essentially got what they wanted. Like, I don't think it's any kind of product promotion or anything. I think it's just like
I'm willing to admit that I was probably irrationally angry at the thing. The first thing I did,
it's
like
just
within
really
the
sappy.
first, but
It goes
within
out of
the
its
first,
goes out of its way.
within the first 10 seconds, I was like double tapping on my phone to forward it because I was like, okay, I don't want to be watching this. Is this going somewhere? And then it didn't. And then
it did. Ghosts. It went to Ghosts. It would have been a lot funnier if it was Ghosts.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I would have. Geist 2 would have been a more interesting answer than Pikmin to this.
It'd have been a worse. It'd have been a worse answer, though. I think we forget that Geist isn't that good. I don't know. It's fine. Like I thought it was cute, but like, yeah, it's sappy and sentimental. But let me introduce you to every CG short film that's ever been created. They're all like this.
No, I can think of like Bao, I can't remember which Pixar movie that was in front of. Actually, I don't even know. I think I ended up with that on my YouTube purchases. I don't even remember how, but like it had kind of this more of a story. Like it had more of a point. Like this mother just like making these dumplings over the years, and then like her son comes in, he looks like a dumpling. It was kind of funny. I can't remember. Actually, whatever.
I mean, it's still sappy and sentimental. It's about empty nest syndrome. Yeah, like that. They're all like that. They're all because they have to deliver the saccharin in a very short envelope. So it feels much more intense for a lot of these shorts. Like they have to get in and get out. So they don't give you a chance to like mix other emotions in. They can really only have maybe one or two emotional beats, and they got to go. And
Sure.
like, yeah, Pixar's going to do a better job at that because they've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
I think that one was in front of Incredibles 2.
Maybe.
Because I think it was like 2018. But yeah, like I don't expect them to hit the emotional notes that a Pixar does, but they are. I think the only one that I think isn't like that is the one with the bird on the beach, and I'm blanking on its name.
Right.
Because that one doesn't even attempt anything. It just goes.
Pip
it's
something.
Just look at this cute bird on this beach.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great. Those are fun. I like those. But yeah, it is what it is. So the actual question, though, that we were posited with, if you were to make, I'm gonna take a step back and say, if you were to make a video based around a character, or a franchise, and then make them invisible, Piper, it's Piper,
Right.
What would be the funniest outcome? What would be the funniest? The titular characters have been erased, but everything that they do is still happening.
Yeah, well, I think an easy one would be any sort of buddy game like Banjo-Kazooie or something like that.
Are you erasing Banjo and Kazooie, or just Banjo/Kazooie?
I wish I could erase them both. Probably. I think probably erasing Banjo would be better comedically.
Because you just have a floating backpack with a bird popping out every so often.
Right. Exactly. And
an asshole bird.
Yeah, an asshole bird, kind of who should be interacting with this kind of dumbass bear. But without the dumbass bear, the bird just looks like a complete idiot.
Good-natured bear also to take the fact that she's an asshole down. Yeah,
so it's just this disembodied bird making acerbic comments.
Yeah, to no one in particular.
Yeah.
I think you've got something to work with there. I was thinking, what if you had Pokemon at high level play. So the battles are happening, but all the Pokemon are invisible, but their attacks aren't. So it just looks like two preteen children standing 20 feet apart, summoning fire and lightning from nothing at each other, but also not able to hit one another. So just nothing happening except for pyrotechnics going off all the time. I think there would be something particularly amusing about that when somebody summons like Whale Lord and the stage just cracks under it, but there's nothing physically visible as sort of a root cause. Especially when you get to something that does like dig or earthquake. It's like, what happened? I don't know. Just an earthquake. Just two kids causing earthquakes out in the park.
I had chosen Pokemon as well, but I was sticking maybe like closer to the spirit of Garfield without Garfield, in that the genius of that comic strip is that John Arbuckle just looks like a deeply unwell, deeply lonely man who's losing it.
Yeah, for those who are unaware, the premise is literally take a Garfield comic strip and then erase Garfield from it, including all the things that Garfield says.
Yes.
So oftentimes it's John just staring at a blank spot, not talking to no one.
And then getting into a rage over, seemingly nothing happening.
Yes.
So basically that, but with Pokemon, the Pokemon are not invisible, they just don't exist. And so you're playing as this boy just going to other boys in shorts or whatever and challenging them to a battle of Pokemon, and the other boys are like, what? And then, like you're just going around in tall grass and trying to pick fight with bugs, and throwing little ping pong balls at people, and they have no clue what's happening.
Oh, okay.
You're stuck in your imaginary world of Pokemon.
Okay. Yeah. So Pokemon never existed in your world versus like I can see that. I'll see one where Pokemon, everyone is having the mass delusion that they exist and they're just throwing balls on the ground and nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
Pokeballs exist, but there's nothing in them.
Sure.
It's just constantly throwing them at the ground. That's a good path for it too.
Yeah, maybe a little bit dark, but
maybe a little bit. Greg, are you ready to erase a character from existence?
Wow, I don't know about erasing it from existence. Although I do like the idea of, and I say like, he's disingenuous. Of perhaps getting some sort of AI Richard Attenborough to go, can't you see the Pikmin, Mummy? Can't you see the Pikmin? From his little flea circus bit in Jurassic Park. But in terms of inspired by, we were talking a little bit before the show, is the inspiration for this, but I do think it's somewhat appropriate because of like a reward item that you get that is entirely pointless. Donkey Kong Bonanza, if we just sort of do time lapses of the levels getting destroyed, but with DK and Pauline being invisible, which again, that is a reward you can get, is a costume that just makes you completely invisible. Not to the enemies.
No, just
to you.
Extra useless.
Completely useless, but yeah, just have like big time-lapse videos of all the layers just getting... It'll kind of look like they're being eaten, I guess, but they're not. They're just getting beaten up by a giant ape who's invisible now. I don't know how hilarious that is exactly, but, it might be somewhat amusing to look at.
Of course, maybe not everyone remembers or has had this experience, but those old like 200 and something and one NES cartridges, they always had like that's way too many games, right? They don't fit in the cartridge. A lot of those games were just hacks or variations on a game. Most of
Or
the
just
time,
the same
that was a
game
Mario
multiple
game.
times.
Yeah. So you had like flying Mario, and like so you could just like swim basically in the air as Mario in levels that were not underwater. But you also had like invisible Mario, and so you could play as you could play Mario Brothers without Mario. So that was the thing. Like you couldn't see where you were, what you were doing, and I guess that was supposed to be fun, but mostly like you would check those out. You were like, okay, fine, I get it, and then you moved on to playing Columns on NES or something, which is something that my aunt did. She was crazy for that game. She had all these games in one cartridge, and she chose to play Columns.
She was a fan of history.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if that one. It was not Columns 2.
God damn it!
Yeah, the first Columns.
The non-historical columns.
Mm-hmm.
It's the worst. It's amazing that Sega survived not having Tetris. Here's columns.
How about Tetris? Invisible Tetris. Can't see the pieces.
I believe that is a mode you can play in one of them, where it's like
Has to be, yeah.
You know what the piece is because it's in the next piece up, but then you just kind of have to do it in your head, and then it appears when you drop it.
Wow. Okay.
For sickos.
Yeah.
There's enough Tetris sickos out there.
Invisible Plocks there. The Tetris alternative if you made a bad choice buying your console. Plocks.
What's the Dreamcast game where the it's a horror game where the monster is invisible? Like, is it D or D's Diner, or am I?
I mean, there is a horror game called D. That seems like something they would have done because, we can't make the game run fast enough if the monster's on screen. Make it invisible. Problem solved. Next question. Let's do it.
Whatever game I'm thinking of, maybe that, but make the monster visible. That could be a neat twist. I don't know. We can move on.
I do like the idea of the Legend of Zelda movie, but Ganon's invisible in all the scenes. So Link's just swinging his sword wildly at nothing. Just absolutely nothing. Just completely haplessly swinging wildly and never hitting anything. Or maybe he's even pantomiming hitting things. I don't know. There's something to be said there.
Well, that's if you're talking about Zelda, apparently Nintendo today, the app, is now the substitute for the Lens of Truth from Zelda, isn't it?
It's true. We can see Pikmin with it, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, maybe that's going to be in the next Zelda game. You've got either going to go, especially with this all Zelda notes on the smartphone stuff that they did in the upgrade Switch 2 editions and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's just you're going to have to use the Nintendo Today app to actually see what's in this particular room in a dungeon or whatever, because we have to build the impression that the Nintendo Today app is an indispensable part of all our lives.
No, we're going to make it an indispensable part of our lives.
Exactly.
Did you? It's also now the 2-factor app for completing purchases from the eShop. You have to launch Nintendo Today and scroll through the day's news to confirm. You're
going to go into full Marvel supervillain mode, and it's we've made the world's food invisible, and you can only see it if you look through your Nintendo Today app. So if you want to live, if you like nutrition, you're going to have to start checking that app every day.
I like the idea that for those of you who are old. You might remember PC before when DRM was a code in a box. Before then, it was many codes in a box because it would be like a code wheel that you had to use every time you launched the software to prove you didn't copy the floppy. I was kind of young for this, but I did have one where it was a drawing of a guy who's a painter for a living, not like art, but like paints walls. And he had paint stains all up and down the side of his pants. And it would just highlight. There'd be a black and white drawing of it on boot up, and it would highlight one of the colors, and you'd had to pick which one it was.
Yeah.
Or I remember Tetris for this would have been DOS. There was a bunch of Russian history in the instruction manual, and it would tell you where it was. I want the eShop to validate you are who you say you are because it's going to quiz you on your Nintendo Today feed, which is custom exactly to you. So you have to go read their fucking news in order to know the answer. It's evil, and I love it. John, do you have any Code Wheel games?
Oh yeah. The ones I remember the most are the SSI Gold Box games, Pool of Radiance, Curse of the Azure Bonds. Those ones, they all had code wheels where you would have to line up the 3 runes, and then you would have to type in 6-digit, sometimes 5, 6-letter word for those ones. I remember also like there was a Gauntlet clone on the Commodore 64 called Demon Stalkers that also had a code wheel, and so what I used to do is I would rent those games. And the code wheel would, of course, be inside, and then you would gently disassemble the code wheel, photocopy everything, and then you'd have your own copy of the code wheel with the pirated game. Those are good times. Actually, now for Pool of Radiance, there's actually there's a really good app that someone created that is an exact copy of the code wheel. It's
nice.
It's so great. They were all the rage. Probably like they were all like late 80s, I would say. Probably between maybe 86, 87, 88. That's when those code wheels were big.
I would have run into these in the early 90s because it was like Windows 3.1. I mean, not Windows 3. We did have Windows 3.1 PC, but this probably would have been like the last stages of DOS as your primary OS.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly the Tetris one it wasn't even like Russian. There was a whole like 5 pages of Russian trivia in the guide, and we got this computer as a hand-me-down, so we didn't get all the books. Mm-hmm. And so it would just be like, what's word 9 on page 4? And it was like these pages were all just history.
Yeah, there were other. That's right. There were some games too where they would include. I think
a bunch of text.
I think that was maybe like, was it Bard's Tale maybe, or games like that where they would include an adventurer's journal in the box.
Yeah.
And so it would say, look up this word in the adventurer's journal. I think that might have also been Pool of Radiance. It's a little bit fuzzy, but they would say, look up this word on page 9, paragraph 3.
Yeah, that was what this Tetris one did, and I was a little kid, but also I didn't have the book, so I just typed the word Russia every time, and eventually it would be right. Like my scheme was, well, that's going to be one of the most common words. Mm-hmm. So I'll just type the word Russia every time. And it might take me like 15, 20 tries. But eventually it would go, oh, you got it. Welcome in.
Yep.
Wow.
I was like, this is so stupid. I was like 6. I didn't have a better plan.
Already brute forcing it.
Pretty much. It was so good. What a dumb thing. Anyway, John, would you read Victor's email?
Sure. Victor Viper writes, "Hey Nintendo historians, I've been playing the recent Gradius Origins collection, in which entering the Konami code on various menu screens unlocks alternate versions and prototypes of a few included games. Amongst these is Versus Gradius for the Nintendo Versus arcade system. Since y'all are on a hot streak of talking about old and or obscure Nintendo hardware, I figured now is a good time to ask, what was the idea behind the Versus arcade system? As far as I can tell, it was basically an arcade cabinet with hardware similar to the NES inside, but Hamster does sell a bunch of arcade archives versions of Versus arcade titles, so perhaps there are differences? Was it a roundabout way for Nintendo to market the NES as arcade perfect? Why would Konami port their arcade game Gradius to the NES and then port that NES version back onto a different arcade format such as the Versus arcade? Was it just a cheaper way to get more arcade cabinets out there? Thanks."
So this is the Nintendo Versus system is kind of neat. John, did you ever encounter any of these? Because you would have been around at that point.
Oh yeah, they were out there, but the thing is, they were quite a ways behind other arcade games at the time.
Yeah,
that's why they always seemed very strange to me, because I'm looking at it like, why would I want to play this NES game?
So the hardware was essentially the Famicom hardware. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit more capable than the NES. I think there's like 2 chips that are different. I think it's literally that closely aligned. Mm-hmm. And the function of them is kind of an interesting thing. So they would have felt very behind arcade because the arcade hardware was usually gassed up from where the modern consoles were. Like that was, to me, that's what killed arcades, is that I can get at least a comparable experience, and honestly probably graphically better experience at home.
Yeah, and the thing is with arcade games is that each one could be bespoke, right? Like you could do whatever you wanted. You could throw whatever types of extra chips on the board you needed or whatever. So that's why arcade games for the longest time were far above and beyond anything that you could get on a console.
Yeah, well, and of course you've got to remember that the Famicom is 83 hardware.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like in Japan, it would have been behind the arcade hardware in 1983. So by the time they're actually releasing the NES, which, you know, it was a limited release in 85 in North America in the New York area. So, like, they didn't go nationwide with it until 86. You think about how far arcade games could come just in those 3 years, the gap would have grown quite a bit.
So it's interesting. The Versus arcade system was kind of a confluence of a few different things happening at once. Nintendo already had made arcade games, obviously, but they had made them on bespoke hardware. In fact, I don't even think they were the hardware designer of their own arcade games. But a couple companies, I know Data East had done it, but Sega was the big one with the Converta game. They had put out these arcade hardwares that essentially had a cartridge slot inside of them. It wasn't a cartridge, it was a board, and you could just slot the board in, and maybe you had to change one chip and some dip switches, and then you could turn this arcade cabinet into a completely different game. Mm-hmm. And that was super useful as you're an arcade operator, because newer games have novelty and they drive more activity. A game that's been sitting around for 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year is going to not draw as much attention. The other thing is these were highly economical machines. They were pretty cheap because they were running older hardware, and they were running hardware Nintendo was already buying effectively at scale anyway to build Famicoms. Now, unsurprisingly, the Versus system wasn't that popular in Japan because there was better arcade hardware out there. Where it was popular and ultimately what it was the catalyst for. So Nintendo had already started having conversations with the fuckwits at Atari about bringing over what would become the NES to North America, because I don't think Nintendo had fully grasped the degree to which Atari were fuckwits. It's a staggering degree.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
They were in this cycle of self-destruction at this point. But also, this is right when the crash happens. Now, we talk about the crash like it was a tsunami or an earthquake. It is a natural event. It was largely self-inflicted, but like there were economic factors in play, there were market factors in play, but also it was Atari immolating itself. The marketplace had become too flooded with content, and there simply weren't enough people to play that content. And so how they sold games back then was that I think it's changed a little bit since then. Stores would buy the game, but then they could return it if it didn't sell. Tools work this way actually now. Power tools. The store doesn't actually buy the power tools. They like pay a small down fee on them, and then they disperse the rest of the payment on the sale. So when these games weren't selling, they just got flooded back to the publisher, which in the majority of the cases was Atari themselves.
Yeah, and I think there was also a problem where, and I suppose this is something that can happen, I guess, even today with much more modern, kind of data tracking and distribution networks and everything. But I think it was a victim of its own success a little bit, because
oh, definitely.
What happened was, I think, they underestimated the demand on the upswing. And so they started, producing way more than they ended up needing. And then, you ended up with the stores being left with all these sorts of units that they couldn't sell and sending them back, because it's just like, okay, we missed it earlier, the previous year or whatever. We should have produced more. We're really bullish. We're going to produce plenty this time. And then you're just stuck with all this stuff and
Right.
all those costs of distribution across the United States, a country, a market of that size at that time, only to have the units be returned. He's just taking a huge bath on all of that. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. And so Atari goes into the drink at this point, but there's also an economic downturn around this time that contributes to it. Like there are multiple factors that cause the crash. Some of them are self-inflicted. Some of them are the onrush of competitors. There's like 4, 5. Some of them are just bad marketing. Some of them is the novelties worn off. These systems were actually pretty old in 83. And then some of it, and Atari has also tried to replace the 2600 like 4 times at that point.
Yeah, and failed miserably. And I think the 2600, if I remember correctly, came out, I think, in 1977.
That sounds right. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. So, I mean, by 83, I mean, it had already been... You're effectively through what is considered kind of a normal console cycle.
Right. They expected it to last about 5 years and get replaced.
Yeah.
And it was 2 years over that. But we talk about this from the standpoint of the home console market. The home console market crashed, the infamous, it wasn't just ETs buried in the desert. Many things got buried in the desert. But the arcade market crashed too. Not to the same degree, but the arcade market also went down. But by 83, unlike the video game market, the arcade market had started to kind of turn around. There had been some new games that had come out that had driven interest back into arcades. People were starting to go in there and interact with that downturn was shorter. And Nintendo, watching the US market from afar after their relationship with Atari had essentially not happened. By 84, they had observed that the U.S. marketplace was starting to recover in the arcades and wanted to get stuff into the arcades. So they used the Versus system, 1, because it was economical, and 2, they could sell it as being one of the few arcade hardware that you can swap them out and put different games in. The other thing is, there were a bunch of Famicom games that had Versus modes that weren't available in the U.S. because the Famicom wasn't available in the U.S., So while these games may not have been particularly appealing in Japan, because as Mr. Viper notes, I could play this at home and it's almost exactly the same game. Yes, if you lived in Japan, you could do that. But if you lived in America, well, maybe not. And while, yeah, there were Gradius arcade machines, obviously, that can't then become a Dr. Mario arcade machine.
Yeah, I think, if I remember, I think there was a Super Mario Brothers simultaneous 2-player mode.
Yes. Yeah, so some of them had multiple screens that were feeding from the same hardware, which is very novel. Yeah. Some of them had multiplayer in same time, because like I said, the hardware wasn't exactly the same. Hogan's Alley was super popular. Duck Hunt was also very popular, which again, you couldn't play Duck Hunt at home because the NES wasn't out. But these things essentially were just repackaged Famicoms in a shell that basically let Nintendo stealth launch the NES in Japan. Like, I want to say it was, there was about 100,000 of these cabinets in rotation in the US, which it doesn't seem like a ton, but that's very successful. It was the highest grossing arcade platform in 85. From an industry they basically were just kind of in a little bit. Excitebike did well in arcades because these games were new and novel. And so why would Konami get involved here? Well, one, they'd already made the Famicom version of this game, as was pointed out. But making the Versus arcade version probably didn't actually require they do much. And Nintendo might have done it themselves, to be honest. Like, it may have been mostly done by Nintendo on their side. I don't know the specifics of the Versus arcade version of that particular game. But, they may not really have needed to make much in the way of changes on that one. Like, they were the distributor. I think Nintendo's the distributor of almost every piece of software. I think there's like an Atari baseball game. There's a few Namco games, but like Versus Castlevania is a Nintendo game. There is I'm trying to find it from the list here. Nintendo. Yeah, Nintendo is the publisher of record for Versus Gradius. So it's entirely possible they took the Gradius Famicom game and made the necessary modifications themselves, and that's it. So Konami would have gone along with it because they just got to cash the check. But yeah, like I said, the Versus Arcade actually didn't do much in Japan because, yeah, those games existed in my house. And the Famicom was very successful in Japan. Even in 85, when Nintendo was still pushing the Versus Arcade hardware, it was still very, very early days for the NES.
Well, is it not even nationwide yet? Like, that wasn't until 86. It was only in the New York area. I think it was FAO Schwartz, the department store, I think, had a lot to do with it. And they, did a lot of like regional marketing and stuff. But, it was a test, essentially. It was because, again, especially at that time, for a company like Nintendo, mostly I think handling it itself rather than, sort of hitching its wagon to, as you said, like they could have done it through Atari or they could have done it through domestic, American companies. The distribution and costs and everything involved with launching in the vast US market at that time was probably more. It was a lot for them to bite off, and so you weren't going to do it unless you felt like. I mean, clearly they judged that maybe things were turning and there was a gap in the market there that they could exploit, and you had the angle with Rob and the Zapper, and it's kind of a toy. Don't necessarily think of it as like just like an Atari or whatever, but they had to see if it was going to be, whether it could suggest it would be successful with a more manageable local kind of launch before they went on to, try and do it across the country. And that wasn't until 86. So yeah, it still had time to have some degree of novelty for the Versus system before it became really ubiquitous. And even then, it took a while for the NES to really kind of penetrate the market to the point where it's like, you're probably talking more like, I don't know, 87, 88 to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, this thing's everywhere. Nintendo's huge. This is, synonymous with video games now. Like that whole thing, that was, probably a fair bit later again.
I think the last Versus Arcade, so the Versus Arcade game stopped coming out in Japan a lot earlier. But I think the last one that came out in North America was Dr. Mario, and that was 90. They were still making the hardware, or still selling the hardware until 92. And then even then, we get the Play Choice 10, which is even more explicitly we are showing off NES games. Because it's essentially an arcade hardware that just has 10 NES games plugged into it. It's not even pretending to be anything else. Although I do think there may have been some variants with two-screen multiplayer, but I think it was literally just the same video on two screens or something. That is literally just an NES. And then I want to say they use that same device to do diag testing. Like it's literally a piece of hardware from Nintendo's internal hardware studio. So yeah, there's a sense of just like arcades were still big. They were still big business, and using them for marketing had value.
Yeah. I mean, really, arcades were still big even into the early 90s.
Yeah. Like games would come out in arcades planning to make bank when they went to the home system.
Yeah. I mean, it really started to peter out probably 16-bit era, and then 32-bit era was really killed them.
Well, I guess the fighting game boom is a big deal, right? It's kind of like, I mean, like, well, it's kind of two phases. I get in the late 80s, the brawlers were big, with the licensed brawlers like Turtles and Simpsons, X-Men, Final Fight, obviously, an original one from Capcom was a big deal and spawned a lot of imitators that, might also be licensed. But that gave way, of course, to the head-to-head fighting games, the Street Fighter 2, just earthquake, type of scenario, wasn't it? It was such a huge deal in Japan, but of course elsewhere as well. And then especially like Mortal Kombat kind of kicked off a big, kind of wave of imitators, specifically in the West, doing graphical gimmicks, like, Pit Fighter had already done the sort of digitized graphics thing, but Mortal Kombat was huge. And then you got, bloody, Killer Instinct with the pre-rendered graphics, Primal Rage with the stop motion graphic, all that stuff. So that kind of, there was probably a bit of a downward trajectory for a while in the 80s, as you already mentioned, James. You passed the kind of real golden age had
Right.
passed by the mid 80s, but then the fighting games kind of give it a shot in the arm, early polygonal graphics to some extent, that technological edge that the arcades maintained, where it's like, if you want to see the most cutting edge stuff that the industry has to offer, it's still in the arcade, and all that kind of persisted through the 90s. But by the end there, once the kind of, the fighting game sort of halo effect was kind of wearing off and all that kind of, stuff like Street Fighter 3 was like a failure, right? Like it made no kind of dent,
Right.
Commercially and stuff. That's when I guess the decline was really kind of inexorable at that point.
I distinctly remember seeing, I guess, it must have been Soul Edge, in arcade, and going, what the fuck is this? Which would have been a JAMA game. I just remember like walking up to it, and it's 3D, it's an arena fighter, all kinds of shit is happening, and I'm like, this is amazing. And I actually had Soul Edge later as a kid, even though I didn't have a PlayStation. I had it to play it at my friend's house. I also got it for like $3. But it was like that. Those games had a big impact. That's sort of the dead ass end of the fighting games boom, because the arcade version isn't. It's better than the PlayStation version. The PlayStation version has horrible Z-axis fighting, but by the time you get to like Dreamcast board-based arcade games, and then GameCube-based arcade games, and then the ones that were PS2, not PS2 based, but were for games that were going to get ported to PS2, the difference wasn't really worth it anymore. And people just stopped going to arcades. But also, you started to see the backslide of places where arcades were, like malls. And like, it was all kind of like one thing compounding on another. Like, I don't have to go to this place to see the latest and greatest, and I shouldn't go to this place. It's not near where I want to be, so who cares? Good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any stories about Nintendo Versus.
All right, well then, I've got something for you, Guillaume. It's our third email.
All right. So, Jason writes, "Hey guys, I'm listening to 946. You're begging for email.
Yep.
And Guy just delivered a nice line. Quote, pro tip, play your game slowly. Unquote. I think I play all my games slowly. I'm just about to finish up Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which I purchased on its release date, and I recently just rolled the credits on some DSiWare. I tend to buy games when they come out, start a file, but several years to a decade will fly by before I fully wrap them up. Do you have games that you took a slow walkthrough that took you a decade of slow play to complete? Appreciate the decades of entertainment." I feel like I've talked about mine already before, and probably not all of them. Like, probably we're gonna, I don't know how long we're gonna keep making this podcast, but I'm sure we're gonna hear at some point about some more games that I'm gonna complete way after I purchase them. But I feel like, and why am I blanking on this now? Nier. The first Nier. I got on PlayStation 3. And I believe that I talked about finishing that on this podcast maybe 100 episodes ago. So about 2 years ago. But this was a game that I bought towards the end of the PlayStation 3's life. But that still would have been a good decade. Like, I'm pretty sure that I looked at the save file I had and it said like 2011 or something. So that would be a good candidate for me. But another candidate that I can't say that I finished because I haven't yet is a game that I've gone twice through most of the way already and gave up. The second time I was further in when I gave up, but I still gave up. and I talked about it on the show. It was Baten Kaitos.
Oh,
I just fell off at some point. I did make it to the second CD, the second disc, and I don't know why I got distracted. I dropped off, and it would be incredibly hard to go back to playing that on the Wii, playing the Cube version. So what I did is that I actually rebought it on the Switch on sale, and I'm waiting to start that at some point, because the Switch version apparently has its share of problems, but it does have some settings, some cheats where like you don't have to get into fights or something like that. And I feel like at this point, this is what I need to actually see this game through. I've seen, I've played the game on its own term most of the way. I don't mind maybe paying again for cheats to actually get to the ending.
I don't know that I have something in this bucket. Like
you do seem like possibly the worst person to ask this of. All my memories of you talking about finishing
I just
games
soldier
is how
through.
bloody fast you get through. It's just like, the old days where we had new Professor Layton games. I know there is another one coming. The new World of Steam is coming
there's
in
another one
26
coming
eventually. But when we used to get them fairly regularly, because there was like a backlog of them in Japan, essentially waiting to get localized. And it's just, that's a new one, and whatever it was, 48 hours later, James has absolutely exhausted it. So,
I've got all the puzzles solved and I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, not that necessarily every game is of that sort, but I'm struggling to think of a counter example. Let's put it that way.
Usually, if I stop playing a game, that's it.
Yeah,
I'm not going back.
Yeah, I mean, my most recent example of this, I talked about it previously, but it was Cyberpunk 2077, where I played that game all the way to the end, and I stopped kind of like sort of what I didn't even really know it was the final boss battle, but I stopped right there, and I'm like, okay, I'll come back to this tomorrow. Well, tomorrow never really came. Fast forward a year, and I was like, man, I know I was right at the end of that game. So I booted up, start playing, kind of, you get used to the controls and everything. And I fight the next battle, the next boss battle. I was right there, like saved in the room pretty much before this boss battle. And I beat it, and it rolls credits. And so I'm sitting there and I'm saying, I put this game down for a year to come back, play it for like 10 minutes and beat it. It's like,
wow.
What was that? I had no idea I was that close to the end of the game, but I was literally. And the thing is, the end boss battle is really easy. It's nothing. It's not like other, like for example, like the boss battle in Metroid Prime Remastered, where it's actually a challenging boss battle. This was one where my character's so overpowered, I just rolled in and like wiped the floor with the boss. But I didn't realize that was the end boss. I thought it was maybe like a boss leading to something bigger or another fight. No. So I walked in there, killed the boss in about 5 minutes. And that was it. That was the end of the game. But I hadn't played it in a year. It made no sense.
It's amazing. I that's got to be up there for like the biggest difference from time I stopped playing to how long it took me to finish the game.
Yeah,
like that ratio has got to be it's outrageous.
And if I would have known when I stopped the game how close I was, I probably just would have said, since I'm this close, I'll just play for an extra 15 minutes and just beat it.
Yeah,
but I didn't know that.
You're on like 6 days to a minute left of like if you played 1 minute every 6 days, you would have finished at the same pace.
Yeah.
It's outrageous.
Well, it was actually, speaking of Metroid Prime, it was also like that too, where I put that game down for quite a while before coming back. But the thing is, the end boss was such a pain. I was like, man. I was like, man, and I was like, I just don't want to play through that boss because it's like, I think I beat it on normal, and the end boss has, I think, the 3 different stages, and so I was in that loop where you don't really know what you're doing in the first stage, so you die. Then you figure it out. Then you go to the next stage, don't know what you're doing, you die. And so I was in that, and I'd made it actually to, I think, the very And I knew I would have to sit down and probably just devote an hour of my time to just learning the boss before I beat it. And, you know, you kind of get to the last form of Metroid Prime where you're fighting and it's throwing down the goop on the floor and all that kind of stuff. And kind of hard to figure out. But then, you know, once you figure it out, you're like, well, this is a joke. And then you just beat the crap out of the boss and that's it.
Yeah, the very last form isn't actually that hard. But again, it is just like... Stop me if you've heard this before. Retro Studios developed boss fights can be quite, you know, long form, can't they? And a lot of it is just, kind of getting back there. You know, like I said, once you've learned it, it's not that hard, but just getting back there is time consuming. And then you're more likely to just make a mistake on something you know how to do because it just goes on for a long time. There's just these sorts of bits where it's like, okay, you got to dodge this, dodge that, and then wait for a window to attack. And if for any reason you kind of miss the window, well, now you got to just, you're back in that sort of dodge this, dodge that phase before you get a chance to kind of make up for your mistake. And in that way, it could drag on quite a bit. So it's not really outright like, oh, this is so tough, or, you know, it's so uncompromising or complicated design. It's just, I always feel like they could use with just quickening up a bit, you know, those cycles, especially when it's kind of like, you know, where you've evaded it once, you know, you've proven you can do the dodging, but you just didn't get the damage in. It should have like an expedited version of that cycle where it's quicker back to the part where you can do the damage in. And there probably are examples where they do that, to be honest, but they're still not to my satisfaction. Even if you go all the way up to like Tropical Freeze, they still have that kind of issue. So it would be very interesting when we get to Beyond. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond in a matter of a few weeks now, really, whether it's the same stuff over again.
Yeah, see if they've learned anything.
I would argue Tropical Freeze might have been some of their worst work on that front of just like that final boss.
I think some of it is just it
horrible.
Feels even more plodding in a side-scrolling context. Like Metroid Prime is quite a deliberate game, whereas like you can play DKC pretty sort of fast. You know what I mean? You can play it. You can play it very gradually as well. If you're like, I'm going to find every puzzle piece, I'm going to do, you know, all the Kong letters or whatever. But if you were to just rip through it, like you can. But then you play a boss, and admittedly they're like their own stages. At least they don't put it at the end of a stage that's like a thing in itself. But still, like, they drag a bit.
It's ridiculous. Did anybody else have an answer to this question?
Oh, sure, yeah, I better say. I mean, I guess, I would say there's some similarity with you, James, in terms of it's not that many times where I fall off something and come back and get over the finish line. There are some, but it's not that common. I think the best examples I have are ones, you know, in the spirit of the question, are just ones where it, like, I never really fell off. It was just a very slow, gradual pace that did keep going. And eventually I got there. One of those, I would say, which is, you know, worth remembering, would be the original Xenoblade for Wii. Now, of course, to go back to what I was saying about James imported it, you know, it came out in Europe. It didn't come out in America at first, of course. And, you know, I wasn't sure, you know, again, some of it because of what I'd read was very complimentary about the game. The reviews were very positive, but it was like, it's enormous, you know, would I be able to finish it? You know, especially because we're talking about Wii. This is not portable. This is, you know, kind of, and you know, back then, a long time ago now, there was more time to be able to dedicate to just, you know, sit in front of the TV and get a certain number of hours in. But, you know, it still was somewhat limited even then. So, you know, there was some trepidation about it. James, you know, imported the game, played through it, you know, relatively fast, given, you know, how big it is, and was very complimentary about it. So, you know, eventually I thought, well, I will get it, and we'll see. I've no idea how much I'm going to enjoy this. I have no idea how much I'll be able to play it. And it turned into, you know, a very kind of, I did like it. I was making decent progress with it, but it was slow. I think it was at least like a couple of months. It might even have been 3. You know, so that was and again, wasn't a case of like any kind of false, starts or, kind of layoffs, or it was very consistent. It just kind of kept chipping away at it gradually until eventually I saw the ending. Now, I think it did influence how I played the game in terms of I didn't experiment as much with the party or do as many of the side quests and things that I might have done, if it was somehow already coming out on a portable system or, any of that kind of thing. So it did change the nature of the experience to a degree, but, it was enough, I guess, in terms of, really, I think the visual journey of just like wanting to see where it was going to take you next, because even though it was Wii, and by that point I had a PS3 and all that, so I'm well aware it wasn't the cutting edge of visual splendor, from a technological point of view, from an art design point of view and the narrative and stuff. It was just interested to see, where it would go next. So, that's probably as good an example as I've got. Another one that was a little bit similar, again, more so just because it's not a terribly long game, but it's just the way I consumed it, turned it into a quite gradual kind of thing, but no less pleasant for it, would be Leighton versus Wright on 3DS, because
that game is so long.
It is long for what it is, but it's not Xenoblade, is it? You know what I mean? So like it shouldn't really turn into a big long saga. But the thing is I kind of the nature of this, I consume it a little bit like reading a book before bed, right? Sort of a little wind down kind of game. That'll be the right kind of setting for it. So I stuck to that, and it worked quite well. Certainly, probably better than it would be trying to do the same thing now, because I'd probably get much less far in a play session before I'm like too tired and then fall asleep for about 25 minutes and then can't get back to sleep. That would be if I did it now. At that time, I could get a decent way in for it. Oh, okay, yeah, I get it. It's done its job. It's helping me drop off, and in some ways I might like to go further, but I probably shouldn't. So let's set that down for a while. So that ended up, I think, taking maybe a couple of months to get through, but very much, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was pretty great, actually. So in both cases, they were, I wouldn't say diminished for it, but just a case of like never really deviating from the pace, just maintaining it, even as slow as it was, until eventually I got there.
Did we get everybody? I think we did.
Yeah.
Okay. We do have to mention John's Chrono Trigger. So
oh god, that's right. How did we forget this?
I don't know what you're talking
RFN
about.
Lore.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Hold on. I'm gonna go look up something real quick. It's got nothing to do with that. Don't worry. It's got nothing. I need you to vamp while I don't look up Chrono Trigger.
I guess. Okay, yes. I may have rented that game back in the day, and I started it, and I never came back to it. I blame Super Mario RPG. Super Mario RPG, as with most things, is the cause of much strife. Yeah, I just made the mistake of renting both of those things from Jumbo Video on the same weekend, and I played through Super Mario RPG, and I did not play through Chrono Trigger. I mean, Chrono Trigger, I think I probably played maybe the first 20 minutes of it, and I'm like, okay, I'll move over to Super Mario RPG. And when did I wind up beating Chrono Trigger on the DS?
June, probably 2011, maybe.
Yeah, so it's a layoff.
I see mentions in May. I see mentions in April. I see mentions.
Sure.
I see mentions.
But I did play it on and talked about it on the show at some point. So
No, I know. I'm not including those. Those come up. Those come up nearly a decade later.
Yeah. So so that would have been probably 95, and then a layoff until 2011. Right?
Well, no, because you're just looking at the DS one. You took a very, very long time.
Oh yeah,
I did.
It was a saga just on DS. Yeah, because it was. The game, I want to say the DS version was maybe late 2009, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I think you got it relatively close to when it came
08?
out.
I probably did.
November 25th, 2008.
I probably
All right,
did.
so
Right.
you're more like early 09 maybe than perhaps.
Look, it was a leisurely pace at which I played through Chrono Trigger. Okay?
Here's how long ago this was. I have references to you still playing it in the RFN show notes on episode 247. You can lead a man to being but dated June 19th, 2011. Let me see
Now,
if someone notes in here that if you had beaten it or just it
I'm
mentions
assuming
it.
that is referring to
John's infamous
Microsoft-
Chrono Train rolls into the station and he ponders the meaning of his own existence
Well, that's-
following the completion of his lifelong gaming goal.
totally valid. But I'm assuming the beam that's being referenced there is probably.
It's a man's ultimate weapon.
It's the man beam. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is it the man beam? Okay.
This would
Well, it
this
could
would
also-
have been
I was
us
also thinking
reading-
of Microsoft's version of Twitch, if you remember that.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah,
No,
I
That's
don't-
what,
yeah,
that's
think
what
it
it was
might have
originally
been
before they called it whatever they changed the
Might
name.
have
Yeah.
been too early for that, but yeah, definitely given our particular focus at that time, it would have been the man beam.
Yeah.
So this is so old that I can't trace back when it starts because it predates the the NWR redesign, or we could start tagging games.
The tags, yeah. No, like I said, I mean, it was possible John may have acquired the DS game round about 09, and then it
Yeah, I
wrapped
could
up in
probably look that
the
up.
middle of 11.
2 years at a minimum. What a truly a display of what? Stop asking questions.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, to me, it's I don't know if it's a layoff. It's kind of evergreen. It's like a ubiquitous quest. You know, it never really ends. So
It's you sous vide'd the game, is what you're telling me.
Mhm.
You just low and slow, low and slow, Linda.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find the low and slow.
I don't know why the idea of John in a sous vide bag is cracking me up, but it really is.
Yeah. So this is So I looked up I got my Amazon order confirmation email for Chrono Trigger on the DS.
Wow.
And yeah, so this was from what date? This was from January 26, 2009.
So basically a month after it came out. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it in early 09 probably.
Yeah,
and then
Chrono
obviously,
Trigger-
yeah, I mean, it
Yes.
wouldn't have been a terrible shock if you had bought it and didn't play it for a bit
Yeah.
on the basis of other
Yep.
things. But, that's why it was a meme, is because it did go on for quite... Because Chrono Trigger, it's an RPG, but it's a Super Nintendo RPG, and to get an ending, it's not that long. If you're doing New Game Plus and you want to wring every bit out of it and see all these different endings and stuff, well then, you might be able to pour quite a number of hours into it. But that's not what was discussed. It was just, getting to that kind of getting rid of Lavos the first time, basically.
Yeah.
It's just not that long.
Yeah. So
Oh.
yeah, there you go. I just
John,
looked
you
at
do have
that.
an answer.
I looked at that as my life's work.
John, we should do Chrono Trigger as a retroact, even though it's not available on anything.
We should. Yeah, I could play through it again.
I don't know. I don't
know
would
what-
like to
what
do
version I
that,
would play
but I
through,
wish
though.
it was available.
Does it?
Yeah.
That's the. I mean, I know they're doing some because of the anniversary this year. With it coming out originally in '95, they have done some things. Like some concerts they're scheduled. I think they might even be next year. The concerts.
Yeah.
By the time they've scheduled them this year, so that's something for the 30th anniversary. But you wonder if it's building towards something, maybe. But yeah, it's. Problem is, obviously, Square, they don't lack for, classic flavoured, RPGs, all these,
No.
HD 2D things and, the final, Dragon Quest 7 reimagined that's coming and stuff. It's not something that they're lacking for in their kind of software portfolio. So you do wonder how long it might take, but I mean, we've had the question before, about why do they not do anything with it? And it's, we've said it's probably because it's too important for them to just do kind of what they did with Chrono Cross, but not important enough to do what they're doing with Dragon Quest 7. right? Like, I think it's in this kind of weird medium spot where they're not quite sure how to handle it, but presumably at some point they will, do something with it, because it's not like some massive, sort of commercial juggernaut or anything, but it's got a certain amount of cachet, and you would have thought there'd be an opportunity to make something of it.
It would be very funny if all we get out of this is some concerts and an art book, and they're like, "But we're not re-releasing it. No, we refuse to make this playable. Go away." Not even as like a Nintendo digital game.
No, that's the thing. I mean, you'd hope you could get at least that, isn't it? I mean, of course, with Live Alive, there was an interesting kind of journey, apparently. Though obviously, Live Alive ended up being remade as a HD 2D thing, but supposedly in developer interviews, I think there was mention of the fact that, like, Nintendo approached Square to possibly license Live Alive for an NSO release, for the Super Famicom kind of part of it. It had been on Virtual Console, previously, for instance, and that kind of got the ball rolling at Square to say, well, actually, maybe we should just, very much not do that. And remake it as an HD 2D game and make money off it that way. So, you'd like to think, if for whatever reason Square is like, no, we can't, we don't want to dedicate development resources for this, or we can't quite find the right project, you could at least, presumably Nintendo would be there ready and willing to say, yeah, we'll license the an NSO version, but like I said, it's just I can't imagine they do that as long as they see that more direct commercial potential to do something with it themselves.
Assuming they do see it, which currently history does indicate that
No,
they
that's
don't.
the thing. But then again, if you see it in something like Live Alive that didn't even release globally back in the 16-bit era, you would think you would see it with Chrono Trigger. So
yes,
we can't. That's the kind of weird circles you end up going in when you think about this.
It's one of those things where the longer you think about it, the less it makes sense, and it's probably not good for you. Like I've thought about this too much, and I'm in pain.
They're too busy releasing, smash hits like the Diofield Chronicle.
Yeah, Diofield Chronicles, the game of the millennium, Guillaume.
Yeah, I mean, they have talked about that, haven't they? That they probably went a bit too wide with their release strategy at one point. That they were how many voice of cards or whatever they were.
At a certain point, I think they were releasing like games on top of each other. Like
they released that Labyrinth game and a voice of cards game within a week of each other. It's like, but they're both games about wandering around in a maze. What the fuck is wrong with you?
No, so I mean that's the point. Very much counter to what pretty much every other major publisher has been doing for a while. It's like we keep talking about it. It's like that kind of like more like medium grade like kind of release. That kind of mid-tier type of project has been hollowed out of publishers because it's either like the most expensive, project in the world, or it's, a really small scale thing. And Square were just kind of totally bucking that trend. But yeah, seemingly bucking that trend didn't work for them commercially. And they've said basically, yeah, we're going to kind of row back on that. So yeah, it's a little bit worried. Well, you couldn't get it in that phase. You couldn't get something Chrono Trigger in that phase where they were willing to do some of these more modestly scaled projects. It doesn't necessarily augur that well for the future, but you are still getting some of these HD 2D things, like Octopath Traveler, Zero, and what's the game with the prosaic name again? Adventures of Bob or whatever it is. Not Bob.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
it was in the last Nintendo part.
Bob. What was his name? Edward? No.
It's really just the most unremarkable
Adventures
name.
of Elliot, the Millennium
Elliot.
There we go. Yeah.
I had to pull up my Switch because I'm like, all right, I have this on here. What is it? Yeah. I haven't touched that fucking demo because, to your point, it is prosaic is exactly the right word. Who the fuck is Elliot, and why do I care? Square Enix is a confusing, bewildering company. Just give it. They are keeping you from a retroactive on Chrono Trigger.
I am down.
I mean,
I guess I would play it again on the DS, which feels kind of weird.
but I don't even have a DS copy. It's like I literally have nothing to play it on unless I want to play a ROM.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I could, but I don't really want to. I want to play.
Yeah, and again, if you want more participation,
right,
and think, which would be one of the fun things about that. Game in particular.
Yeah, best way I'd probably play it is, I mean, the most comfortable way would probably be on Steam Deck through like RetroArch or something.
How easy would it have been to include a ROM with Chrono Cross?
Relatively straightforward.
Yeah, again, presumably if they didn't see some potential in it, they could have done that. But again, we must infer from their behaviour that they do see a commercial avenue somewhere of some description for this game, but they're not taking it yet.
Yeah, like
just like Chrono Trigger, you still have hope for Castlevania Symphony of the Moon.
No.
The night, like if
they
must see something. Otherwise, it would have been in these collections.
It's similar. It is similar, except you don't have whatever's going on with that Sony version of your Dracula X Chronicles or whatever clouding matters whether there's actually any kind of material roadblock there by that version existing, or how long any kind of exclusivity was, or they just genuinely wanted to do all the other stuff first because maybe they think, Symphony would cannibalize the sales of stuff like the DS and GBA collections. I mean, it might be something to that, but yeah, we've obviously many times it's come up. It's similarly puzzling.
It's bewildering. To get to your question of like how hard would it have been to include it, not that hard, but they made a conversion of Radical Dreamers,
which was definitively harder,
which is a Teleview game that was only in Japanese,
had to be localized.
Yeah, it had to be converted from as a Teleview game too. Like they had to do real work. There are ROMs they could have just stuck on the disc and called it a day.
Yeah, no, I know. We're back to like Live Alive and the way that they completely remade it instead of just giving us a ROM. Like it's, I don't know. I just hope that I won't die before we see a remake of Chrono Trigger, I guess.
I
mean, it's been long enough. I mean, it's you laugh,
several people have died since
exactly.
We first started wondering where it is. Yeah.
I actually, our conversation on Chrono Cross last week made me want to download the edition that came out and play it. It is still not Switch 2 compatible. What the fuck is wrong with this game?
Wow, yeah, I mean, it does sound like it was a bit of a bit of a strange project in terms of they'd lost a lot of like the original code or whatever, like it was not properly backed up at all, and it sounds like it was maybe relatively kind of hacked together or something. I don't know why that would extend necessarily to difficulties, with it being the translation layer or whatever, with Switch 2 back compat, but perhaps it does. I don't know, or it should be coincidence.
I like how we end every email segment making ourselves depressed. What have we done? All right. Well, any other ones for this, or are we just gonna continue to stare longingly at Square Enix to do the thing we need them to do, which is make some form of Chrono content playable on my Switch 2, please?
Well, I mean, if they can come up with something, I don't think it necessarily works, the same with a pixel art game and all that. That's one of the rare. But if they end up with a re-release or a port or whatever you want to call it that's as good as the Super Mario RPG one was on Switch, that's like the ideal, I think. Yeah. That was like perfect. Speaking of that John did with the rental back in the 90s, that remake on Switch was just like the perfect way to play that game. It's like the graphics finally are what they, what you would have liked them to be all along, and they didn't mess with it very much other than that.
Yeah. All right. Well, emails, send them please to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That is rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. And we are going to take a break here. And when we come back, we're going to do probably some new business. We really haven't talked about it, so you'll find out with us. Stay tuned. are back. We're going to do a little bit of new business. We're kind of light on new business this week, so it's going to be a little bit freewheeling here. I did finish DK mode with the Emerald Rush. You do not get anything for getting through the 10,000. You get a boss fight. It's a rehash of a boss fight you've already seen. Shocking, I know. In this game, you get to refight a boss in a different location. Who could have seen that coming? But
Seems like you've been playing this for like 3 weeks, though.
Yeah, it's about 11 hours to get there.
Okay.
Took a while. I mean, I actually really enjoy Emerald Rush. I really do. But there is a certain amount of there's a point where it just became very mechanical. And it's just like, I know how to run this level. I'm very good at running this level. I'm just going to keep running this level exactly the same way and let the winds of fate decide if I'm going to have a good run or a bad run. I'm not going to modify for anything. Whereas before, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to modify my run based on what I'm getting. But it's like, I came to the conclusion of, I'd rather have a run fail in the third round because I didn't modify to match what I'm getting. And then have that happen 3, 4, 5 times in a row, and then get one of those massive high reward runs. Like, that was more economically efficient than a bunch of middling, like, kind of rewarding runs. Time is the most valuable asset we have, and I chose to go after it that way. But the only thing it's worth noting here is, if you thought this might be the path to 5 stars, like we hinted it might be, it is not. There is no 5th star or 4th star even. It is 3 stars. So this does not affect your star count, although I do have all the music and all the outfits. There are some good ones. I don't know. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the DLC. I did. I'm happy I played it. But yeah, I don't have anything really else to say. John, likewise, did you have anything you want to talk about today?
Yeah, just what we talked about during the break. Really, I'll probably wait until I'm actually done with it, but I'm reading Play Nice, The Rise and Fall of Blizzard by Jason Schreier. That book, it's pretty interesting. It's okay. Like, I don't love it. I mean, there's other books I'd probably recommend above it, like something like Masters of Doom, at least in this sort of genre. But it's interesting. It covers Blizzard from the very formation of it all the way up to the present day. And I think, James, you asked kind of where I'm at right now, and I'm about 70% of the way through it, according to my Kindle. 67% actually. And I'm right at 2014, so this is kind of the era where they're introducing Overwatch, and Blizzard is trying to get into their failed esports era. So yeah, so it's interesting. Hasn't got to the most salacious stuff right around the time of the Microsoft takeover, but it does go right up to that. I mean, this book just came out, I think, last year. So yeah, so more when I'm done.
Boy, that book could probably get like 2 or 3 more chapters now.
Yeah.
Ownership under Microsoft has been an experience.
Yeah. Yeah, Blizzard really is still riding World of Warcraft really hard.
Yeah. It's kind of shocking. Like,
it really still is World of Warcraft and Diablo after all these years. You know? StarCraft they're not doing anything with. Overwatch, kind of a flop.
They have a MOBA, don't they?
Well, that was a flop. Heroes of the Storm.
Oh yeah, you're right. That
flopped hard.
Shit.
Yeah, and I actually didn't think about that, but it really is, after all these years, still World of Warcraft and Diablo.
That's kind of sad.
It is kind of sad. Yeah.
I'm kind of sad now, John. You made me sad.
That's what I do. I do try.
I mean, you do that, yes, frequently, often, without any like regret or
with
remorse.
gusto, actually.
Yeah, I think you get up in the morning and think, oh, it's Thursday. I get to make James sad today.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, some of the stuff you text me also makes me sad, for the record. A lot of old wrestling stuff. But
it's fine.
Yeah.
Is that what your alarmo does when he wakes up and it's like, hey, it's Thursday. Get up, buddy. It's time. It's time to start thinking about how you're going to ruin someone's day.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
She's got a custom alarmo mode where it's just a me that says, get up, John. It's time to ruin everyone's day. Great.
Yeah, so more to come on that.
Cool. Guillaume.
Yeah?
What have you been up to?
Unfortunately, not much.
Uh-oh. We're about to go back to the email mines.
Yeah, no, well, I've just been, playing occasionally a few stars in Super Mario 64. on the NSO. I didn't have an N64 when it was current, or ever. I never owned one, but I rented one when I was, with friends when I was a kid, and some friends did buy one eventually, but anyway, it's not I know some earlier N64 titles better than what came much later. And that's basically the extent of my experience with the Nintendo 64. But Mario 64 remains the I don't know, the platonic ideal of an N64 games, of an early 3D platformer.
They built the console around the game.
Yeah, they sure did. And I still remember, I played one. I played it before the game, the platform released at basically what is now a Six Flags, but it was an independent theme park in Montreal. During the summer before the N64 released, they had. I can't remember if the copy was in Japanese or in English, but anyway, it was just mind blowing. I had played 3D games before on PC, not to mention something like Star Fox, but the way that it controlled and that you could just do all these acrobatic moves, it was just mind blowing. And I'm trying to kind of go back into back to that time, basically, as I'm playing the game now. I'm trying to really I don't know what word I want. There's a word that comes to mind. I know it's not one I want to use. I just want to. Fuck me. Anyway,
I'll clean it up. Do you want to take the second stab at it? I can clean this up.
The word that comes to mind is impregnate, but that's not what I mean.
What?
In French, imprégné means something different.
Okay, I'm not cleaning this up. This is sticking around now. I'm
That's
sorry.
what I
I'm sorry.
figured.
If you had gone with anything else, I would have cleaned it up.
I know. Yeah, it's my I knew what I was doing when I finally spit it out. What the fuck is... Why can't I just find a translation here? God.
Did you make up a word in French?
No. Infused. I don't know.
Infused?
Imbibed.
I mean, I guess...
Imbibed, imbued, soaked with... No.
I like this. This is getting freakier by the minute.
This is getting
Penetrated
less and less
by-
erotic by the moment.
Yeah, right? This is the eShop right here.
Anyway,
eShop.
I'm just trying to wrap myself
Ladies.
into that kind of nostalgic feeling, and trying to
Immerse
the
yourself.
game.
Immerse, yeah.
Immerse. Jesus Christ. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I don't know. I'm tired. All right.
This is the best content of the episode so far.
It
Guillaume.
absolutely
Give
is, I
anything
agree.
to be upset about.
So I'm trying to, and adopt the kind of the eyes that I would have in 1996 or when I first played this game, and it's kind of working so far, because the on the Switch 2 now, on the NSO, now you can rewind, which does a lot to smooth over a lot of the frustration that can be had when you make a very simple mistake, or when Mario sticks to a wall when you didn't want him to stick to a wall, or bonks his head against a wall when in any Mario since, in any 3D Mario since, he just keeps sliding up the wall and grab the ledge. The early Super Mario 64, groundbreaking game, but they were still inventing 3D platforming, and so it definitely has these things that jut out, and that it would be sanded off in future Mario games. But so being able to rewind mistakes like that is a godsend. And so I've finished, I've gotten 70 stars before in Super Mario 64 on various, on the virtual console, whatever. But like right now, I'm actually trying to get to 120 stars. We'll see if if I keep my resolve. I just cleared the, 72 stars line. I saw the credits. Peach baked me a cake, all that stuff. But now, like the real challenge, like I haven't even tried the Rainbow Cruise or whatever that's called. I haven't had to enter any of the levels that are like past the infinite stairs. It's just like I got all my stars from earlier stages, so we'll see if I keep that resolve. Where the hell is the metal cap?
It doesn't show up much.
It's in the underground world. You mean the switch that
switch.
activates it? It's in the world, the underground world. Was it Hazy Maze Cave?
Hazy Maze Cave.
Is the English. Well, yeah. I played it Japanese. I've played it in English since, but it's still they don't stick. But
I think the actual name of the challenge has metal cap in its name.
Yeah, it's
really?
like
okay.
you go in the liquid metal pool to get there, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like somewhere in that cave is the switch. You find an exit to the switch. Kind of, they all have their own little zone, don't they? The red, the green, which is the one where you look up at the ceiling in the castle lobby, and then the blue, the kind of ghost switch that's in the moat, I think, of the castle. Yeah. So it's a little bit weird that it's actually in a level, but I guess
think
it's
what's
like
tripping me up. Yeah, like I was expecting to be like this one-off, like on the side thing, but no, it's actually that level. Okay.
Yeah,
that's okay. Well, I was just I've now I've got a backlog of stars that I need to go back to in like various underwater levels, because I still don't have the stupid metal cap, so I'm gonna be getting that next. But see, that's kind of what's fun about revisiting Super Mario 64. Like I do enjoy the fact that in future 3D Mario games they sanded off the rough edges, like for in terms of controls. Like it's much easier to get around and to not have Mario kind of do a weird, instead of just pivoting on myself, I'm going to do a slow kind of wide circle around and like, whoops, I fell off this platform. There's like these weird bits with the controls that you're just not get used to anymore if you've played more modern Marios. But at the same time, like I do miss kind of the weirdness of how you get some of the stars. Most of the time it's just like, go over there and you're going to find one. But sometimes, like these manipulations, like basically like the... I forgot the name of the level, but the one where you can manipulate how high the water level is. Like that's basically the water temple from Zelda. Kind of very prototypical version. And
the metal cap has iron boots type stuff, as you already alluded.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing. A lot of it, there's a lot of it that does almost feel like a bit of a dry run for a Zelda game, and that it makes it all the more kind of logical that in future they wouldn't. Those are things that are unique to this game. Like they wouldn't carry forward into other Mario games.
I forget my biology classes, but there's Super Mario 64, and then the evolution branches out, and there's like the Zelda branch and the Mario branch, and they both have this common ancestor. But Mario would never really get this type of puzzle again, and I kind of miss that. I feel like there's something really cool about the various things that they tried, and the general weirdness a little bit of what it demands of the players, and there's the fact that it's kind of forever tied to my memories of playing it back in the day and kind of discovering a lot of what was possible in a 3D game with this game, it's it's kind of hard to beat, you know, and yeah, I'm kind of I'm surprised, and at the same time not that surprised that the game still holds up at this point for me. And I think that what I really needed was this rewind feature to just like something to take away the frustrating bits. I'm mostly playing that when I have the time, and like it helps that getting a star usually takes maybe a few minutes. And sometimes when you know what you're doing already, and for most of these levels, I do, like even if I've forgotten most of it, like usually it comes back as I play. You can get 2 or 3 in a very short amount of time. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Of course, people right now are playing, like they've just played Donkey Kong. They're revisiting Super Mario Galaxy 2. So yeah, I guess this is just my ongoing quest to never be relevant, even when I'm playing retro Mario games.
Nice.
Yeah. So sorry about that. Other than that, like tomorrow, I'm leaving for sunny Peterborough. It's a Canadian Thanksgiving, and so I'm gonna be going to my favorite used games place, and last time that I went there, I bought a copy of I exchanged a copy of Peter Jackson's King Kong, the movie, the game.
Yeah.
And I think I had explained that like last year. Basically, like my copy didn't work. It would on the GameCube. It would just like crash at the first like the cutscene after the first part of the first level. But then like so I exchange it and I see that they've got a second copy. So I'm like, okay, I picked that up. Like I'm shopping, I'm taking my sweet time. Then I go pick up like they don't keep the discs with the boxes. Like you bring them the boxes and then they take CDs out of their sleeves and they put them in your box and then you leave, you pay and you leave. I took so long shopping that I think that they just didn't test the disc, and then they gave me the exact same disc the first time that I exchanged it. So I explained the situation like the following year, so it must have been 2 years ago that happened. So yeah, last year I explained the situation. I think you gave me the same bum disc, and then it took me all this time to actually check it out. Like I checked it just earlier today. Okay, does this crash at the same place or not? Is the problem my Wii or is it the disc? And so this copy works fine. Like they gave me a good copy, and I wish I had played it earlier because instead of just confirming, okay, this one is good, I can play through it. I could have actually just returned it and gotten something else. But yeah, like I played like the first part of the first level. It seems good enough. Like this was like one of the very early GameCube games, right? Like it was. I remember the reviews being really positive about it. Like it's a Michel Ancel directed game, and it's supposedly quite short, which definitely is in its favor probably.
Isn't it a late GameCube game?
No, very early. Wasn't it?
But Peter Jackson's film came out in 2005 at the end of the year, so it must have been very late, really, for GameCube.
Because it was like a 360 launch game. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And the 360 came out.
Okay. Well,
before the Wii by quite a bit.
I completely misremembered that, I guess.
Peter Jackson was busy early in the GameCube's life with something else. I forget what it was. But
right, yeah. All those. I played those EA Lord of the Rings brawlers. They're not as good as I remembered. But Peter Jackson's King Kong, the movie, the game, seems to have a promising start, but it's very... it's kind of charming in how kind of simple but ambitious it is. For a first person back in the day, like it just has you solve a lot of little puzzles. Right now, all the characters that accompany me give me the solutions to those puzzles. So I'm hoping that maybe at some point it stops being so handholdy. But you're not just taking a gun and pointing it and shooting at that giant centipede, although that happens a lot. but they'll have you like, okay, grab those spears there. You can see that there's like brush, just blocking your path. So use the spear on the torch there, light it on fire, throw the spear at the brush, and then it catches fire, and then some stuff, it gets destroyed, and now you can move past this part. It's got you're like, pushing different like levers and stuff in first person to activate some mechanisms to open doors, and then Naomi Watts goes through and it's a whole thing. It's also got like the actual voices for I think all of the main characters, which is kind of surprising. I'm just not used to hearing Jack Black in the video game. Like, I'm surprised that he was this available to do voices back then. I
This
could
have seen
Joe's.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
But I mean, like Naomi Watts, and just Adrian Brody, back when it seemed like he would have a better career than he's had. Like they're all here. So yeah, like it's interesting. And their likenesses are here. Like the game almost starts with like a big close up of polygonal Naomi Watts, just like looking down at you as you're waking up from being knocked out.
God damn it again.
Yeah. So it's I don't know. It's kind of impressive. I guess I'll talk about it more probably sometime in the next couple of weeks. And that's it for me.
Okay. Greg.
Sure. Well, yeah, I guess there's some continuity here because what I've mostly been playing this week is the Galaxy 2 reissue for Switch's Witch 2. Although first, I do want to quickly mention, was it yesterday or overnight or something, depending on how you look at it anyway, not very long ago, there was the update to Nintendo Switch Online for Super Nintendo that brought us Fatal Fury Special.
Yay!
Bubsy.
No!
And somewhat like anticipated, but still kind of interesting that they're actually doing it. Mario and Wario, the Japan-only, mouse-only Super Famicom game that now, with the miracle of Joy-Con mouse controls, they can actually bring to the West for the first time. So I did just have a quick dabble with that earlier today. As you might imagine, I didn't get do that many stages, or it's kind of like seems like you can pick from among all the stages. They're just kind of there but I still picked the first world or whatever, and that's very sort of introductory, right? It really is kind of like there's almost no timing dependent in a lot of that first world. It's just fill in the blocks to because the premise of Mario and Wario is you have a character, not necessarily Mario. I'd forgotten this if I'd ever known it, that you can actually pick from among 3 different characters, and they have a different movement speed. And so you've got Peach has a slow movement speed, Mario, as is always the case in sports games, is in the middle, and Yoshi is the fast character, which I guess, in a lot of senses is probably going to be, the more quickly the character moves, the more difficult it is, because you've got to, kind of modify the environment with this mouse cursor, essentially, this little sort of some sort of pixie character. I forget what it's called. And but of course, if the character's moving faster, then you've got to do it just as fast or in turn. But there are some things I can imagine, just based on what I've seen so far, where it's like the character moving quicker is helpful as well. So yeah, I guess you kind of pick up front before you kind of enter into a world, and then you go from there. And there are lives, which is a little bit of a strange choice, in this kind of game. But you can get extra lives by collecting all the stars in a level. Then they tend to be sort of the kinds of things that if this had been a DS game, which to some extent you can see some of the latter Mario versus DK DS games in this, the way that was about kind of indirectly kind of influencing a character is similar to the way this is. With a touchscreen interface there rather than using a mouse, but you in those contexts they'd probably be extra collectibles for like 100% completion, whereas here it's like, oh well, why don't you risk your life to get an extra one? It doesn't really work as an incentive structure. So you can kind of see it's adhering, even though it's a weird kind of game, with this mouse cursor indirectly kind of affecting how a character can move and all that by changing things in the environment. It's still adhering to the kind of standards of the day of like, yes, we have lives and game overs and, all that kind of thing. Cause it's just that's what you did back then. Right. So it kind of feels a bit strange, but, especially, because it's on NSO, you have rewind, you have, save states. I don't know whether the game itself actually saves at all. Cause they might have just cheaped out on the battery. I can't see any option to save or any indicator of it saving. But you can always use the save states. And as I said, you could seem to just try however many worlds. All the worlds are there for you to try, and there's like, I think 10 levels in each world or something. But after the first so many in that first world, like especially when you get to the second, you see more of like what the game's actually kind of about in terms of you've got to hit a particular kind of empty space to make it a block that your character can walk on. But Wario has dumped something on their head. It starts off as a bucket, but like in the second world, I think it's just like a Yoshi egg or something. Although I was using Yoshi, so I don't know whether that was just because of that. But so like your character can't see what they're doing, so they're just going to walk blindly into trouble. You've got to make sure that the path ahead is safe for them. And so, the first thing that it kind of does beyond the basics is like, okay, these blocks will disappear a few seconds after you click them. So, you've got to click them at the right time and, in the right sequence and pace to make sure that Mario or Yoshi or Peach is going to be safe before they can get to Luigi at the end, who can rip, the only man who's got the power to rip this thing that Wario has dumped on your head. So it's kind of an interesting premise for a game. I've heard about it a fair bit over all these years, but it's nice to finally get a look at it and see what it's about. I don't know, imagine I'll be spending enormous amounts of time with it going forward, but the mouse control works fine. It's I don't know whether, maybe if it was going to get later into the game and maybe it gets more demanding, I'd have to get more of a really like proper setup to make sure that, I'm manipulating it with the maximum dexterity. But just for these early levels, even just, kind of, having it to the sort of arm of the chair on the side there, like it was fine, but, we'll see if there's anything more to that. But, so in terms of what I've been playing more over the past week, it's been Galaxy 2, which obviously this is the first time I've been played through it in 15 years basically. I mean, it's interesting when you think about it, really. I mean, what I wanted from this in order to give me the sort of excuse to play through it again, because my Wii and Wii U are still hooked up. I could have put the disc in and gone back to it that way. But really, it's just a case of, you want something that I can play portably in reasonable resolution. That's the bar that it has to clear, essentially, which is not a terribly high bar. A little bit like, the Donkey Kong Returns HD earlier in the year, really. I liked the game enough on Wii, and I did like it very, very much. I would say one of my favourite experiences of that generation. Really, really enjoyed it. I know, remember, of course, James, you had to review it. Speaking of getting through things quickly, you had to get through it extremely quickly. So, I mean, obviously
3 days.
You liked the game, you gave it a warm review, but I'll always remember that you reviewed it, I enjoyed it. That's it.
Right.
I had the pleasure of actually enjoying the game.
Because there's some stuff in this game that's really hard, and you might just want to step away for a minute and go like, okay, I need a breather. I was like, okay, I need to get through this right fucking now.
No, indeed. It's kind of interesting, actually. I know we've talked about over the years, like in Europe and Japan, like the game shipped with a DVD that was meant to, like, help people appreciate what a 3D platformer is.
Right.
Because basically, it came from this time where the original Mario Galaxy sold well, but new Super Mario Brothers games sold better. And so there was this feeling of like, the problem is it's just a bit more complicated than, the side-scrolling games, and we need to help people appreciate that. No, it's just as good. Maybe it's better in some ways, but you just got to get your head around it first, right? And so there was a number of ways in which Galaxy 2 reflected that sort of mentality. And, definitely it was kind of having more of the kind of blue skies type environments of the side-scrolling games was part of that, even though it did maintain the space theme, generally. More sort of side-scrolling or kind of quasi-side-scrolling sections, all this sort of stuff, and certain accommodations where I say, oh, well, a 3D game, we need to ease people into it and make it more like 2D. The overworld thing, like the Starship Mario or whatever, is much streamlined from the Comet Observatory or Delfino Plaza or the Peach's Castle in the N64. Much more like a level select, really, with a world map, like classic side-scrolling Super Mario games and so forth. But for all that, the difficulty is actually, it feels like it is kind of tuned a little bit for like, oh, when you played Galaxy, this should be more advanced. Like, not strictly so. It's not like Super Mario Brothers 2 for super players or whatever, where it's like, oh, right, let's pick up from 8.4. Basically, it's not nearly that kind of difficult, but it's relatively kind of tricky. And this somewhat leads into one thing. In terms of clearing that bar that I was looking for, I want a relatively solid, doesn't have to be doing anything too special, portable version of this game that gives me the opportunity to play through it, because I could play through it on TV, but it's just, if I'm going to have the time to play something on TV, I'd rather it be actually a novel experience rather than, revisiting an old game, however much I liked it at the time. So I was reading a review from, I think it was Video Games Chronicle, which was generally very warm on the game, but it had one con in the review. They had a pros and cons at the end, rather like NWR has had. But the one con was basically like, in terms of substituting for the pointer functionality, in handheld mode, it's a bit of an issue, especially in Galaxy 2, right? Because, of course, they were reviewing both games, even though I'm only especially interested in the second one because I played through the first one not so long ago, with 3D All-Stars. So this did make me think a little bit about, what the game was like. And yes, like they did use the pointer a lot more in some more kind of actiony, kind of advanced ways than they did in the first game. That's one of the things I liked about the second game. Obviously, you have Yoshi. You're using his tongue, in specific ways. You're latching onto things to get to higher places and all this kind of stuff. And then you kind of think, yeah, that would be more of a problem, because when I played Galaxy on the 3D All-Stars portably to start with, like that really, I think it was only kind of the touch screen that you could use to, kind of substitute for the pointer functionality. And that was, not great. That was a bit of a pain. And so actually, I think I got, the however many it is in that game. I can't remember if it's 70, but whatever you need to go to Bowser at the end and beat him. And I did that, and then I think I put it down. And I only came back, and obviously I talked about this on the air, and I ended up sort of cleaning up the rest of it later. I think because if you remember, when I had my pre-OLED Switch, it had this issue with the rail, the Joy-Con rail, right? It would keep detaching.
Right.
So I had a controller attachment thing that basically, instead of attaching via the rails, it attached via the USB. So it was essentially like using a USB controller, like a Pro controller type of thing, but it was a casing around the system. And so what that allowed me to do was essentially play the Galaxy or 3D All-Stars in handheld mode with using gyro to sort of steer the cursor around. And that was good enough to let me get through I ended up doing everything, like Luigi, 121, whatever, everything. And so, that gives you a little bit of confidence that maybe, if you're playing the Switch 2, Switch 1 or Switch 2 of Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 here, that functionality is now included sort of as standard if you're playing in portable mode. So even if it's just with the Joy-Con attached, like you can use gyro to simulate that pointer functionality. But, I was looking at it thinking, it's not, when they're asking a little bit more of you, I wonder how well it's going to hold up in that regard. Because gyro, people, regular listeners may remember, I'm quite a big fan of gyro aiming in a lot of contexts, but a lot of the time, as I'm sure people have heard me say, I like it for the fine adjustments, right? It's like you do the big movements with an analog stick in something like Splatoon, for instance. You move the view with the analog stick and then you just fine tune exactly where you're shooting with that gyro. Now, of course, with this, where you're simulating a pointer, it's not quite the same. You can't, you may end up doing sort of relatively big movements, trying to kind of go from one spot to the other on the screen, and you have to do it all with you're sort of steering this cursor around. Whereas on Wii, with the pointer, it was very immediate, right? That was what was good about it. That's what was, I was always a big fan of pointer stuff. I was like, that's the good part of Wii motion controls. It's fast. It's immediate. You can do things well with it that you can't do with sticks nearly as well. Especially aiming in particular, and how I used to talk about how cool it would be if they some reason they lost all sense of commercial good practice and made another Sin and Punishment game using it, and then they fucking well did it. It was incredible.
Yeah.
But the thing, so you don't have that anymore, right? And I was worried a bit about, is it gonna, having had some experience of essentially the way it was gonna work here, how well would it adjust? But I've played now up to beating Bowser, seeing the credits, and it hasn't been a big problem, I'll say. Now, again, there's some tricky stuff in here, especially quite a lot of post-game stuff, and I do wonder how capable I'm going to be able of going all the way on that stuff with this, because, again, the reality is it is not as immediate. That is just true. Now, you can get better at it, and especially, of course, what you've got to do is you've got to recenter a lot, right? So, because it will drift on you, right? And so you need to get used to recentering it. And if you do, that means that you should never really have to steer too far away from one place to another, right? Because it's quicker to just like recenter, skip some of the steering of the pointer, and then, go from the center at that point. So once you get, used to it for a bit, you start to find ways around and what's the best way to kind of be efficient and be effective with it. But there's no doubt it feels like an accommodation. It feels like a sort of approximation and a not exactly good one of what it was like before. It's not like a perfect recreation. But, there's other, there's things going in the other direction. I mean, I'm very pleased, I certainly was with 3D All-Stars, to have the spin function just mapped to a button. Because while that kind of gesture control, it wasn't a big problem, I would say, with Galaxy 2, but the fact of the matter is there was nothing gained from making it a gesture control.
It was unnecessary imprecision.
Yeah, it introduces some imprecision, right? Now, most of the time don't necessarily need to be that precise with time, but just every now and again, there's the odd thing like where it's like, okay, actually you need to, do that right at the precise, correct moment to activate a launch star and escape before, something's coming to get you or whatever. So, or like there's a side-scrolling thing I did recently with the Boo Mario where it's like you need to, if it was the original Wii version, you would shake the remote to go intangible at a moment where you can slide through a grate, right? And then, and again, like that was introducing a bit of fuzziness to that process, having it be a gesture control that being mapped to a button now takes out. So, you've got a little bit of compensation there. But overall, that's really kind of the biggest differences with the experience. The rest of it, it seems, I mean, it's 15 years ago. So there were some things I remembered very, very well. And then there were other things that only really came back to me as I was seeing them, like the chimp. I think James, you weren't too hot on some of the chimp stuff.
No, some of them are quite hard, and like not in a good way hard. Just like you guys didn't tune this right.
So no, but it was very like it was in there. Like I said, I remember you talking about it now, but not until I laid eyes on the chimp with his silly sunglasses did I. So I was, oh yeah. But I mean, there's a lot of things. Just how kind of quickly they introduce Yoshi and all the different power-ups for Yoshi. The kind of like where you can you kind of turn into almost like a blimp and go high in the air. You eat the hot pepper and go running really fast, or you get the luminous sort of thing and you create platforms around you. All that kind of stuff gets introduced relatively quickly. Certain things like just like it's not like super tight, but the requirements for you to keep advancing through those world maps are like a little more, again, I don't know if stringent's the right word, but it's asking you to be somewhat kind of thorough with especially if you wouldn't necessarily have found and done that many of the prankster comet things and the associated challenges. You have to do a lot of the sort of levels to keep progressing. So again, it's all part of what people would have heard me say over the years. I liked and I think was a kind of important step that Galaxy 2 kind of represented in the progression of 3D Mario, where and Galaxy was a big step in the direction already, obviously. And it's very much a continuation of it. But it's like more linear, more like the side-scrolling games.
Yeah.
And, more sequential than the, Guillaume already mentioned it with Mario 64, right? It's like, if you want to go to Bowser and just not fuck with those later worlds, you can do that. Right now, you have flexibility still some here with Galaxy 2, but it's not nearly that much. Like, yes, you a lot of the time a Galaxy will have like 2 primary kind of stars associated with it, and you need to do one of them to like advance to the next spoke on the map, or the next kind of part of that map. So you've got a little bit of choice there. You don't necessarily have to do both, but a lot of the times when you're going to see, you're going to get enough stars to clear these like requirement roadblocks that come up later. You probably will end up doing both of them anyway at some point and stuff. So yeah, you really see how it led into 3D Land and 3D World. I mean, there's so many elements. You sort of they become like recurring things. The beat block concept where like the platforms change on a rhythm, the flip gate things, where like the platforms flip from red to blue depending on when you jump or when you use the spin attack in this case. All these things just like it was all coming together, and like I think. That's the thing for me. I really did love Galaxy 2 and the original Galaxy at the time, and playing them now, I've still found it very enjoyable. But there is a sense, and it's not nearly to the same extent. But if you think about Mario Sunshine, and it's like, how is it possible that I could play it in 2002 and have loads of really genuinely fond memories of playing that game? And then when we come back to it years later, with the retroactive, as we did, pretty much all that stuck out was all the jank and the bizarre decisions and the things that don't work, right? And a lot of it is because, at least speaking for myself, the things I liked about Sunshine, the things that genuinely was like, oh, I really like this is what I want to see 3D Mario doing, had been completely superseded by the stuff that came up. Just like, all the things, those like floodless levels where you're platforming without the pack, and it's, kind of like classic 2D Mario brought into 3D. they've been done way better in Galaxy and 3D Land and all that. So it's just kind of like, yeah, that goes into the wallpaper and all the bad stuff just screams out of you all of a sudden. I would say there's a minor amount of that going on here for me in terms of the things I liked about Galaxy 2 vis-a-vis Galaxy 1 of making it more linear, making it more like the side-scrolling games. 3D Land and 3D World really did that. They went all the way in that direction and did it extremely well. And also, I like the handling in those games more. I like having a run button, even in 3D. It feels like Super Mario to me, and not having it here, kind of just, and the handling of the character just doesn't fit. I mean, I guess you've got like how Odyssey controls as well, which is another thing again, but personally, I kind of like the feel that you get in Super Mario 3D Land, 3D World. So, there's a definite sense of like, yeah, it's still enjoyable to play now, but like you see how it, bore fruit in these other games that, were really, really great in their own right and kind of took it on and have kind of eclipsed it. But for all that, I will say that, the thing about 3D Land and 3D World is they don't have the same feeling, even, especially 3D World being on a more powerful system, of like the visual creativity and sort of panache of like these surreal scenarios and, all that just kind of, mind, perspective twisting and vast things off in the distance and stuff blowing up, and then you zip along to another planetoid and all. Like, there's so much more literally grounded and just, based on old school Super Mario that they don't have a lot of that kind of, kind of spectacle to them. And even though, these games with this visual, even, they're higher res, but, it doesn't change what they are at the core. Like the textures, some of the textures are upgraded, but in some ways you see the simplicity of the models, that are not that high poly, even more clearly for it being like up-resed and stuff than you did before. So, graphically it certainly clears the modest bar I had set for it. It's a solid portable version of the game. But, it's not like it's high tech or anything. It's just the imagination of the scenarios. I do feel like even though that's not necessarily strictly a gameplay thing, it does have value. And it is something that it kind of brings to the party that, 3D Land and 3D World, while I would say gameplay wise, I'm kind of more on board with them at this point. They still lack that. And that's one of the nice things about going back to this is all that stuff, that all those scenarios and just wacky stuff that it has, and so it's been very fun, I would say. And it'll be interesting to see how far I can go coming up in the next few weeks or whatever. Just probably slow down a little bit now and just start chipping away some of that more challenging stuff. And we'll see if I hit a wall vis-a-vis how responsive that pointer stuff is.
Yeah, I'm curious. I would like to play Galaxy 2 and actually get to enjoy it. Because I never actually went back to it. I was like, well, I need more time. I need more time away from that game. So maybe I could just play it now. I mean, I could always just take Galaxy 2 off the shelf too and play it on the Wii, which is hooked up to which I'm sure will look excellent on this like 57-inch 4K TV. I'm sure it'll look great. Flawless,
yeah,
even.
Well, that's the thing. So, I mean, certainly, I think even Galaxy 1, I think I played on my like first HD TV, which probably wasn't that hot, in a lot of ways. Early LCD TVs, they weren't necessarily great, were they? So in some sense, it could look a little bit better just for virtue of being on a TV with better motion clarity and all that kind of thing. But on the other hand, my current TV is bigger.
Right.
So I wouldn't do it that many favours as, if you just booting up like the Wii or Wii U. So yeah, I really did want to be able to do this portably. And it's, even with the weirdness, it's functioned well as a portable game.
Cool. All right. Anything else?
No, that's good. That's going to do it.
All right. Well, I think that will do it for us as well. As I said before, emails go to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Greg, what is our music to end the show this week?
Well, of course, a few days after this podcast is published, it'll be on the 16th, I believe. We've got Pokemon Legends Z2A.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so well, it's obviously a pretty major release, so felt like it would be appropriate to have something Pokemon themed to coincide with it. And a little while back, Connor wrote in with a request for something from Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon, which you might think, well, is that related to the Legend Z2A? But that was I guess in terms of an actual fully original game, that was the last Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game, and it was the one following on from the 3DS, the first, was it Gen 6, the first generation on 3DS. So it has like Mega Evolution and all that kind of thing. So, there's a connection there. But yeah, Connor was originally suggesting it being to coincide with the game's 10th anniversary in Japan, which, was in the middle of September. But Connor explains, I've been a mega fan of the series for a long time, even if I've admit Shiren is better gameplay-wise by far, and I always felt that Super Pokemon Mystery Dungeon was a perfect finale to that sub-series, so good that I really do not feel they need to ever make another one. And of course,
I agree with that.
We had the remake of the first Red and Blue Rescue Team.
Unnecessary.
Right? That we had a remake. We have not had an original one. And Connor went on to discuss a few different potential candidates for the closing music, but settled in the end on Legendary Boss Battle Rock version, because it would be a sort of a more fun choice. I think it says that a boss remix that plays in a random boss fight sounds incredibly Falcom-like, following up from Connor's previous request a few weeks ago that we used, that came from Falcom. And of course, our other request from KSO from Shirin. So it's kind of like a meeting of those two things here. But yes, when we say rock version, don't think rock type Pokemon, think squealing guitars. That is what we're getting here. So yeah, it is quite fun in that way.
Cool. All right. Well, on that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.